Welcome to OOTO, the Out of the Office investigation.
Glad to be here.
So, I want you to think about something. In modern medicine, if your body is sick, you go see a doctor, right?
Of course.
And, well, if your mind is sick, you see a therapist. And then if you're seeking some kind of, spiritual peace, you might go to a meditation retreat.
Yeah, we've entirely compartmentalized our existence.
Exactly. But what if treating the human experience as, this set of separate, isolated problems is exactly why so many of us feel chronically stressed and burned out today?
It's a really profound question. And to answer it, we're embarking on an investigation into the past and future, focusing on the deeply psychological and physical framework of the Andean people.
And if you close your eyes and visualize the sources we're drawing from today, extensive historical accounts, indigenous cosmologies, and research compiled by El Campesino, you might imagine this vast, timeless manuscript.
Oh, absolutely. Picture this scholarly organic map of human existence. It's got hand-drawn botanical anatomy, ornate, intertwining leafy vine borders, and diagrammatic labels.
Yeah, all resting on this aged parchment that's stained with ink bleeds and a soft watercolor wash. It feels, antiquated, but undeniably authoritative.
And our mission today is to guide you through that manuscript. We're exploring how the ancient and modern Andean civilizations map the universe and the human psyche using three sacred animals.
Right, the condor, the puma, and the snake. And the core of this whole system is a concept known as palo.
Pacha, which is fascinating because in Western thought, we generally think of time as a ticking clock, right?
Yeah.
And space as just an empty room.
Yeah, totally separate things.
But Pacha translates to a unified space-time. In this worldview, your physical environment, your spiritual mind, and the ancestral unconscious, they aren't divided by rigid walls.
Right, they are a single, interconnected, breathing organism.
Exactly. And to understand how they successfully maintained mental and physical health in, let's be honest, one of the Earth's most hostile environments, we have to start at the top.
At the very top, the realm of the mind and higher consciousness.
Yes, Hanan Kacha, the upper world. And its ultimate representation is the condor.
The condor is just such a perfect metaphorical visualization for this. I mean, it's this massive creature with, a 10-foot wingspan.
Easily like 10 feet.
And it physically bridges the heavy, grounded earth with the seemingly unreachable heavens. It just rides those thermal currents up into the thin, freezing air.
Surveying everything from a macro perspective, Hanan Pacha is the domain of the sun, or Inti, the moon, the stars, and the celestial beings.
But what I find truly staggering, really, is the psychological sophistication of their astronomy.
Oh, it completely flips our Western approach on its head.
Right, because when Western astronomers look at the night sky, what do they actually do?
They basically play connect the dots with the light. They look for the brightest stars and draw lines between them to form constellations.
Exactly. But Andean astronomy focuses equally on the dark. When they looked at the Milky Way, which they called Mayu, the celestial river, they didn't just see a scattering of light.
No, they looked at the interstellar dust. The pitch-black patches absorbing the light within the galactic center.
The dark cloud constellations, or Yanafuyu. And think about how Western psychology works today. We are so obsessed with finding the light in ourselves.
We constantly want to highlight the bright spots.
Right, the positive traits, the successes. We want to cure or just hide the dark parts. But what the Andean people did by mapping those dark clouds is, it's the equivalent of embracing the shadow self.
They gave equal reverence to the darkness.
Yeah, in those black, empty spaces of the cosmos, they saw the mother llama, the Yakana, and her baby. They saw the toad, the Mashakwe, which is the serpent constellation.
By naming and acknowledging those dark spaces, they created a much more complete, resilient picture of reality. They understood you can't have a functional psyche without acknowledging the negative space.
And that psychological resilience, it was mirrored by an incredible biological resilience. Because, the condor's realm isn't just a metaphor.
Not at all. It corresponds to a severe physical reality. The apis, the extreme altitudes of the Andes, the mountain spirits.
Surviving near the condor's realm requires staggering biological adaptation. I mean, at 13,000 feet, the air is incredibly thin.
Right, and over centuries, the Andean people physically adapted to this environment. We're talking about physiological bioengineering here.
So how exactly does a human body survive constant hypoxia?
The body literally transforms. The Andean people developed the high-altitude heart, larger barrel-shaped chest cavities for greater lung capacities.
Oh, wow.
But it's not just about drawing in more air. It's about what the blood does with it. They evolved to produce much higher concentrations of hemoglobin.
Which is the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen, right?
Exactly. Their blood vessels dilate to ensure oxygen reaches vital organs, which fundamentally alters their neurobiology.
So this constant biological engagement with a low oxygen environment, it can actually induce altered states of perception, a profound lightness.
Yes, they viewed these high altitudes as places of pure energy, which they called Sami. It was completely free from the heavy, stagnant energy of the lowlands, which they called Jucha.
You're listening to OOTO with research by El Campesino.
So we've explored the lofty spiritual heights of the Condor. We have the mind and the cosmos.
But, having your head in the stars doesn't harvest potatoes in a freezing, jagged mountain range.
No, it definitely doesn't.
You can't live purely in a state of higher consciousness when you literally need to eat. To survive the physical reality of the Andes, you had to pull that cosmic energy down to the earth.
And that brings us out of the sky and right into the middle world, Pacha, the realm of the Puma.
Pacha is the physical world. It's the immediate present moment where humans, animals, and plants exist right now.
If the Condor is the mind, the Puma is the body. It represents physical vitality, raw action, muscular force.
And when we look at the traditional Andean life cycle, the Puma energy aligns perfectly with youth and early adulthood.
The Huayna, or Sage, yeah, roughly between the ages of 18 and 25. This was considered the absolute peak, the golden age of physical strength.
And they utilize that strength in ways that honestly make modern extreme athletes look completely tame.
Oh, entirely. This was the age when young people served as chasquis.
Right, the elite relay runners,
Yeah.
carrying messages across a staggering 25,000-mile road system, the Kapakinan, that basically spanned the entire spine of the Andes.
Imagine sprinting at 14,000 feet of elevation. You're navigating swaying rope bridges over bottomless chasms.
Climbing carved stone stairs in freezing rain, just carrying vital information on knotted strings.
They moved information across a massive empire at up to 150 miles a day purely on foot.
It's unbelievable, but beyond running, this Puma energy was harnessed for heavy communal labor, the Mita laborers. And this is where the mental health aspect becomes so fascinating to me.
How so?
Well, wait, I have to challenge this concept of mandatory physical labor being an entirely positive thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's be realistic here. Today, if a government demanded back-breaking manual labor in freezing conditions, we would call it oppressive.
We definitely see it that way, yeah.
We'd expect massive burnout, resentment, rebellion. Human nature is inherently competitive and self-preserving. So how did they force people to do this without society just collapsing under the stress?
Well, the thing is, they didn't have to force it in the way we think of coercion, because the entire psychological framework was just different. It was anchored by a sacred principle called Ayini.
Ayini, the concept of sacred reciprocity.
Exactly. Often translated simply as today for you, tomorrow for me. But it's much deeper than a transactional favor.
Contrast that with how you, the listener, probably live today. You sit at a desk for 9 hours, staring at a screen, mentally exhausted but physically completely stagnant.
Right.
Then, to stay healthy, you go to a gym, pick up heavy iron plates that serve absolutely no practical purpose other than your own physical aesthetics.
And then you go home to an isolated apartment.
We are completely atomized. Our exertion is purely individualistic.
But in the Andes, physical health and labor were directly tied to community utility. Your Puma energy wasn't just for you. It was the metabolic engine of your community.
So when you helped construct a neighbor's roof or clear their field, you knew with absolute certainty that they would help harvest your crops before the winter frost.
Yes, you belonged to a system, and the system supported you. That totally eliminates the psychological dread of isolation.
It wasn't a hustle culture designed to elevate one person above the rest. It was a collective survival strategy.
And that collective Puma energy is what allowed them to literally tame the earth. They were agricultural masterminds.
I mean, they didn't have oxen, they didn't have the wheel, they didn't even have iron tools.
Yet, they reshaped the mountains. Look at the sheer scale of their agricultural bioengineering. They built massive stone terraces, the Andenes, directly into the cliffs to prevent erosion and create arable land.
But the most stunning example has to be the laboratory of Moray.
Oh, Moray is incredible. Visually, it looks like a descending Roman amphitheater carved deep into the earth. It consists of these concentric circular terraces going down about 30 meters.
But it wasn't a theater, it was a thermodynamic marvel.
Explain the physics of that, because it's absolutely brilliant. How do a bunch of circular stone walls create an agricultural laboratory?
Well, it all comes down to thermal mass and wind protection. The circular design basically protected the inner crops from the harsh, freezing mountain winds.
Right, acting like a shield.
Exactly. And meanwhile, the massive stone retaining walls absorbed solar radiation from the high-altitude sun all day long.
So when the sun went down and the freezing night air rolled in,
Those stones slowly radiated the trapped heat inward. This created a staggering temperature differential. The bottom of Moray could be up to 15 degrees Celsius warmer than the top terrace.
so they essentially built an artificial multi-tiered microclimate using nothing but rocks and physics.
Yeah. By simulating different altitudes, they could experiment with crop genetics. Through this Puma-driven ingenuity, the Andean people cultivated thousands of varieties of potatoes and hundreds of varieties of maize and quinoa.
They would plant up to 200 distinct varieties of potatoes in a single small field.
Which is genius. So if a specific fungus or blight or a localized frost wiped out 50 varieties?
The other 150 would survive.
Yeah.
That is resilience born from action and diversity.
You're listening to OOTO with research by El Campesino.
But, here is the universal truth of biology. The puma cannot run forever.
Muscles tear, joints wear down.
The physical strength of the middle world inevitably fades. And this transition brings us to the final realm of the Andean cosmos, Ukupacha, the underworld.
Now, when Western listeners hear underworld, the immediate association is usually hell, right?
Yeah, we think of fire, punishment, darkness.
But Ukupacha is not a place of torment. It is the inner earth. It's the world of the ancestors, the world of the seeds, and the deep generational memory.
And its representative animal is the snake.
The snake is such a powerful symbol for this. It slithers with its belly completely pressed to the soil, feeling the deep vibrations of the earth.
But crucially, the snake sheds its skin. It represents renewal. It represents the cyclical, non-linear nature of time.
And this entirely reframes the psychology of aging. In Western cultures, we have a profound, almost paralyzing fear of getting older.
Oh, we fight it constantly. Surgeries, creams, diets. Because our society predominantly prizes Puma energy.
Youth, productivity, physical beauty, speed. When you lose those things in the West, you often lose your societal value. You become invisible.
But in the Andean framework, when your physical strength fades, you enter a highly revered stage of life, the Machu or Payan stage.
Your role in the community shifts fundamentally from muscle to mind. You transition from the puma to the snake.
Exactly. The elders become the Kamayuk, the keepers of knowledge. They're the ones who can read the cyclical patterns of the weather.
They remember the histories and they guide the spiritual rituals. They're respected precisely because they're moving closer to Ukupacha.
In their mindset, an elder isn't decaying toward an absolute end. They're returning to a state of spiritual infancy, preparing to cross over and become an ancestor.
Which means death is not a finality. It's merely the shedding of the skin. They viewed the human body after death literally as a seed, a muju, planted back into the earth to nourish the next generation.
And they treated this concept with stunning practicality. The Incas mummified their dead, but they didn't bury them in dark tombs to be forgotten.
No, the boundary between Pacha, the world of the living, and Ukupacha was completely porous. Mummies were treated as living entities.
In the capital city of Cusco, the mummified remains of past rulers were seated on golden stools.
They maintained ownership of their estates. Their descendants fed them, offered them chicha, which is a fermented corn drink, and literally paraded them out into the public squares during major festivals.
The living would sit down and consult the dead on matters of state, marriage, and war.
It's a beautiful, intricate, and deeply comforting way to view existence. The condor, the puma, the snake, the mind, the body, the ancestors, all working in a perfect, continuous loop.
You're listening to OOTO, with research by El Campesino.
So for centuries, these three worlds were conceptually and physically stitched together. The Andean people even created a geometric symbol to map this integration, right?
Yes, the Chicana, or the Andean cross. You could see the Chicana carved everywhere in their megalithic architecture.
And that architecture was quite literally designed to hold the universe together. Take the fortress of Sacsayhuaman or the Coricancha.
Oh, their ashlar masonry is unbelievable. They fit massive boulders, some weighing up to 66 tons, together so perfectly without a single drop of mortar.
You literally cannot slide a piece of paper between them.
The stones were painstakingly pounded and shaped to interlock in complex polygonal patterns. These buildings were living huacas.
And when an earthquake strikes, these stones basically dance. They absorb the seismic shock, shift slightly, and then settle right back into their perfect places.
These monuments were living physical anchors meant to stitch the upper world, the middle world, and the underworld together.
But what happens when a system this perfectly balanced experiences an apocalyptic shock? In 1532, that structural integrity was violently tested.
The arrival of the Spanish conquistadors, led by Francisco Pizarro, was an event of incomprehensible trauma.
The Spanish arrived with weapons the Andean people had never even conceived of. Steel swords, firearms, war horses.
In the city of Cajamarca, Pizarro ambushed the Inca emperor Atahualpa. The Spanish slaughtered thousands of his unarmed guards and took the emperor hostage.
The ransom demand was legendary. The Spanish demanded a room filled with gold and 2 more filled with silver.
To save their leader, the Inca complied. They stripped their sacred temples, melting down religious artifacts they considered the literal tears of the sun into mere ingots of currency for the Spanish crown.
And after receiving this unimaginably vast treasure, the Spanish executed Atahualpa anyway, and later Tupac Amaru.
For the indigenous mind, this was far more than just a military defeat or a change in political administration. It was a Pachacuti.
A Pachacuti, a cataclysmic turning over of the world.
Yes. It was profound, psychological, and cosmic severing. Colonization effectively shattered the 3 worlds.
The physical anchors of their cosmology were melted down or built over with Catholic churches. Their religious practices were banned.
But worst of all, the Spanish imposed the encomienda system. They took the sacred reciprocal labor system of Adini and twisted it into brutal enslavement,
forcing indigenous people to dig for silver in the toxic, collapsing mines of Potosi. The Hanan Pacha of their celestial gods was replaced by a foreign, distant heaven.
And the Uku Pacha, the sacred inner earth of their ancestors, was demonized and rebranded as hell. The worlds were ripped apart.
And this raises an incredibly important question about how modern Andean people process this historical trauma today. Because, I mean, if your entire universe was violently inverted by invaders, you would expect an overwhelming generational desire for violent retribution.
The reaction is much more complex than simple revenge, though. For a long time, there was a profound psychological wound known as blancamiento, or whitening.
Internalized racism.
Exactly. For generations, surviving in the colonial and post-colonial system meant shedding your indigenous identity. It meant hiding your language, changing your clothes, and acting less indigenous to gain social mobility.
But today, we are witnessing a massive cultural reawakening. And what I find so inspiring is that this reawakening does not focus on vengeance.
No, it doesn't. In rural communities right now, traditional justicia indigena is still practiced.
If someone commits a wrong, the primary goal isn't to lock them in a cage to suffer. The goal is to reintegrate the offender and restore cosmic harmony.
It all circles back to Aini. The retribution they seek against the colonial past isn't about hurting the descendants of the Spanish. It's a profound returning to the self.
It is resistance through existence. Despite centuries of colonial erasure, the Quechua language is still spoken by millions of people today.
The reverence for Pachamama, Mother Earth, remains deeply rooted. We see a brilliant syncretism where indigenous beliefs seamlessly wove themselves into Catholicism,
allowing the old gods to survive right behind the faces of the imported saints. It reminds me of the Neo-Inca resistance in Vilcabamba. It's this invincible persistence of the snake shedding its skin and beginning anew.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, navigating the modern world?
We've explored the condor, the puma, and the snake, not just as mythological animals drawn on a piece of aged parchment, but as a highly advanced, integrated psychological and ecological blueprint for human survival.
It was a system that successfully maintained mental health, physical vitality, communal obligation, and ecological balance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of our lives today, the Andean people teach us a vital lesson. True health cannot be achieved in isolation.
Your mind, your physical body, your local community, and your natural environment are inextricably linked.
You cannot heal the mind if the body is stagnant, and you cannot heal the body if the community is broken. When one part suffers, the whole system is disordered.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought for you to carry with you. We talked extensively about the Andean concept of Pachacuti, the world turning over.
The violent colonization of the Andes was Pachacuti that shattered their balanced world. But look around us today. We are facing unprecedented, overlapping global crises.
Massive ecological collapse, an epidemic of mental health issues, and profound social isolation in the age of hyperconnectivity.
It makes you wonder, could the immense crises we face today be the catalyst for the next Pachacuti?
Are we as a global society currently experiencing a cosmic turning over?
Perhaps we are in the messy, chaotic middle of a Pachacudi right now, just waiting for the snake, the puma, and the condor to finally realign in our own lives.
As the modern Andean resistance movement profoundly states, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds.
Thank you for joining us on this investigation into the past and future.